Lightning flickered across the darkening sky as Lily stood outside the Sunset Diner, pulling her coat tighter against the wind. She had no idea that tonight, on a shift like any other, she would come face to face with the one person who had defined all her unanswered questions. If anyone had told her she would soon confront the mother who had abandoned her years ago, she might have scoffed. But in a few short hours, everything she believed about her past would tilt on its axis. The mysterious stranger coming in from the rain wasn't just another customer. She was the woman who had walked away, leaving Lily behind. And now, through a single order of coffee, the past was about to catch up with them both in the most unexpected way possible. A cold drizzle clung to the early evening light as Lily pulled open the door to the small diner she had called her workplace for the past 3 years. From the outside, the worn neon sign glowed half-heartedly, promising warmth and coffee to anyone passing by. Inside, the air smelled faintly of buttered toast and brewing espresso, a comforting haze that usually set her at ease. Yet tonight, a restless feeling churned in her stomach. She paused in the doorway, scanning the crowded booths and cracked vinyl seats, before tying on her apron and stepping behind the counter. Her shift always began the same: check for napkins at each table, refill salt and pepper shakers, then greet patrons with a polite smile. But this evening, something felt off, as though an invisible current crackled in the air. Lily tried to dismiss it as the usual weariness of juggling night classes with her job. Still, the unease lingered. It pulsed in her chest, a subtle yet unmistakable sense that something, or someone, was about to change her life. She steeled herself behind the register, taking comfort in familiar routines. She recounted the specials to a couple seated at the counter, scribbled their order on a small notepad, and passed it to the cook through the serving window. Her co-worker, Sam, who manned the griddle most nights, flashed a friendly grin. He'd been at the diner even longer than she had, a steady presence with a perpetual smudge of flour on his sleeve. "You okay?" he asked casually, noticing the crease in her brow. Lily sighed, forcing a half-smile. "Just feeling a little unsettled," she admitted, hating how vague the words sounded. She couldn't put her finger on the source, so she shrugged away the concern. "It'll pass." Sam nodded, not pushing for details. He reached for a carton of eggs. "Holler if you need anything." Grateful for his understanding, Lily turned her attention back to the customers. The usual clang of silverware against plates and low hum of chatter filled the diner. Through the glass windows streaked with rain, blurred headlights moved across the dark street. Some nights, Lily found the monotony comforting. Tonight, every noise felt amplified. When the bell above the door chimed, she glanced up out of habit. A woman in a rain-soaked jacket stepped inside. Her hair was pinned back neatly, though a few strands had slipped loose, framing a face that held a tired grace. She paused near the entrance, taking a moment to remove her coat and gently shake off the damp. Lily tried to offer her standard greeting, yet as the woman's eyes swept across the diner, Lily felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. Something about those eyes, dark, expressive, touched with a quiet sadness, made her pulse jump. She turned quickly, busying herself by polishing already spotless cups. She heard the rustle of the woman's jacket as it was hung on a stand by the door. Footsteps approached, and soon the woman slid into a booth near the window, setting a small purse on the table. Lily exhaled slowly, trying to shake off the sudden tension that knotted her shoulders. It was just another customer, she told herself. No reason to feel uneasy. The sense of familiarity was probably a trick of the mind. Grabbing her notepad, she walked over, preparing to introduce herself in a neutral, welcoming tone. Yet each step felt heavier than usual. By the time she reached the booth, a faint quiver lingered in her hand. "Good evening," Lily said, forcing a kind smile. "Can I get you something to drink to start?" The woman lifted her gaze. Her stare was searching, as if she too recognized something she couldn't place. "Just coffee, please." Her voice was gentle, laced with hesitation. "Black." Lily nodded, scribbling the word coffee on her notepad, even though she usually remembered by heart. "Sure thing. Would you like a menu?" "Thank you," the woman replied. She paused. "It's quiet in here tonight?" Lily offered a polite laugh, even though the place seemed to hum with more tension than usual. "The rain keeps some of the regulars away." She hesitated, words catching in her throat. "I'll be right back with your coffee." Turning on her heel, She tried not to rush to the kitchen. The woman's eyes followed her. That much Lily could sense, and it made her shiver. Once she was out of earshot, she pressed a hand against the diner counter, inhaling in measured counts. She couldn't explain why the woman's presence stirred this odd familiarity. Had they crossed paths before? It was possible. Customers came and went every day, some more memorable than others. Still, something in that brief exchange of looks reminded her of nights spent wondering if she'd ever know the mother who had left when she was just a child. She often tried to bury thoughts of that painful past, focusing instead on the routine of her days. Thinking about her mother only ever led to confusion. Why had she left? Where did she go? Did she ever think of Lily? Those questions used to echo in her dreams when she was younger. Now, at 20, she managed to keep them tucked in a silent corner of her mind. Most days, the ache felt muted, though never fully gone. When she handed the woman a cup of steaming coffee, she noticed the subtle tremble in her own fingers. The woman looked up, meeting Lily's eyes, and for a second, Lily's heart kicked against her ribs. "Thank you," the customer said softly. She touched the mug's rim, warming her hands. "Actually, can I ask your name?" Lily blinked, not expecting the direct question. "I'm Lily." A flicker of reaction crossed the woman's face. Something between relief and sorrow. So fleeting Lily wasn't sure she had read it correctly. "That's a pretty name," the woman managed. Her gaze fell to the mug. "I'm Elena," Lily nodded politely, struggling to stay composed. Perhaps she was just imagining things. People asked her name all the time. But as she walked back to check on other customers, her mind wouldn't let go of the sense that she'd just stepped onto a path that would alter her life. The hours wore on. Elena lingered at the booth, occasionally stirring her coffee as she gazed out the window. Sometimes, Lily caught herself watching from behind the counter. Each time she approached to see if Elena needed a refill, there was a tension, a closeness, as though they were both inching around some unspoken truth. By the end of her shift, Lily's nerves felt like a frayed wire. Long after the other patrons left, Elena asked for one more refill. Lily obliged, noticing how the woman's voice shook slightly when she said thanks. Finally, Elena stood, dug into her wallet, and placed enough cash on the table for the coffee, plus a generous tip. Lily thanked her and watched Elena shrug into her raincoat. Then she was gone, the bell chiming softly behind her as she disappeared into the wet darkness. Sam stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "You look rattled." Lily let out a long breath. "She was nice," she mumbled, not sure how to articulate the odd mixture of comfort and unease that swirled in her chest. "I just got a weird vibe. Like maybe I've met her before, but I don't know where." He tilted his head. "Maybe you have. Could be one of those uncanny resemblances." His tone suggested it was nothing to fret about, but Lily could see the concern in his eyes. "Get some rest. You push yourself too hard." She nodded. Yet as she locked up the diner an hour later, the patter of rain on the pavement felt like a reminder that something had shifted. Shivering beneath her umbrella, Lily walked home, trying to push away the lingering ache in her chest. She told herself that, come morning, the memory of Elena's face would fade, like many of the strangers she served daily. But sleep brought little relief, and when dawn arrived, the woman's image felt more vivid than ever. The next few days passed in a blur of half-hearted conversation with customers, hurried orders, and minimal rest. Lily tried to dismiss her reaction to Elena as an overworked imagination. Yet each evening, a spark of anticipation lit inside her. She found herself glancing at the door whenever it chimed, wondering if Elena would walk in again. By the fourth night, Lily's hope and dread collided when, indeed, Elena returned. This time, she took the same booth near the window, her coat draped carefully over the seat. Lily approached with more composure than she felt, pen poised over her notepad. "Welcome back," she said in a steady voice. "Can I get you anything to start?" Elena smiled, a flicker of warmth in her eyes. "Just coffee again, thank you." Then, after a hesitant breath, "I'll be right back with that." As she walked away, her heart thudded so loudly that it drowned out the diner's usual clamor. This rhythm repeated itself over the following weeks. Elena would slip inside during Lily's shift, always choosing the same booth, always ordering the same black coffee. Sometimes she'd chat with Lily about mundane topics, weather, slow nights, local news. Other times, she'd silently stir her cup, eyes drifting across the diner to settle on Lily for a moment or two before turning away again. Sam began to notice. One evening, after Elena left, he poked Lily's shoulder lightly. "You look like you've seen a ghost whenever she walks in," he teased gently, though his concern was real. "Everything okay?" She hesitated, turning a fork over in her hand. "There's something familiar about her," she admitted. "I don't know what it is. It's not like I remember her face. It's more that feeling of—" She stopped herself. Talking about the mother who vanished from her life at age 7 felt unnatural, especially here in the bustle of the diner. "Never mind." Sam said nothing, simply giving her a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. Lily clung to that subtle gesture. She feared that if she voiced her suspicions, her wild notion that maybe this woman held some piece of her past, she'd sound ridiculous. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, Lily could no longer deny the pull she felt. The more Elena showed up, the stronger Lily's intuition grew. Sometimes she woke in the middle of the night with fragmented memories, a faint lullaby, a hand brushing her hair, a whisper she could almost recall. It left her gasping, her cheeks damp with tears. Each time she wondered if confronting Elena might bring her closer to the truth. One gray afternoon, the diner was quieter than usual. A steady drizzle streaked the windows, and the lights overhead bathed the interior in a soft golden glow. Lily tried to lose herself in restocking sugar packets, but her hands shook slightly. She glanced at the clock, half hoping Elena wouldn't arrive. Yet when the bell jangled, Lily's stomach flipped. Elena stood in the doorway, shaking off the wet from her coat. She locked eyes with Lily, a tension passed between them, a current that felt stronger than ever. Lily turned toward the counter, pressing her hands flat against the surface. Her heart pounded with a question that she was no longer able to bury. "Why did you leave?" She felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. Turning, she realized it was Sam, who had quietly come up behind her. "Go talk to her," he murmured. "She's here for a reason. You both look like you're carrying a weight only each other can lift." Panic darted through Lily, but she knew he was right. Gathering every scrap of courage, she inhaled deeply, grabbed the coffee pot, and made her way to Elena's booth. Her mind buzzed with half-formed words. She poured the coffee with trembling hands, then cleared her throat. "Elena," she began, voice quavering. Could we talk for a minute?" Surprise flickered across the older woman's face. She set her mug down, nodding. "Of course." Lily slid into the seat across from her, knees inches away from Elena's. Up close, she noticed the faint lines around Elena's eyes and a silver thread in her dark hair. If she was searching for a sign that they shared the same features, it wasn't immediately obvious. Yet something about the shape of Elena's mouth or the curve of her chin made Lily's breath hitch. She braced herself. "I'm not sure how to say this, but I feel like I know you, or maybe knew you." Her heart pounded so hard she wondered if Elena could hear it. This is going to sound strange, but did you ever? Do you know anything about a girl who was left behind?" Elena's eyes widened, her lips parted, no sound emerging for a moment. Then she exhaled a shaky breath, her expression torn. "Lily, Before she could continue, the bell above the door chimed again, and a group of noisy regulars tramped in, their laughter and banter shattering the fragile quiet. Lily flinched, noticing Elena's posture stiffen. Maybe we can talk more when you're not busy," Elena offered, voice subdued. She glanced at the men gathering around a nearby table. "I don't want to cause trouble," Lily swallowed, nodding reluctantly. "Okay," she whispered, disappointment and relief mingling in her chest. "Please, don't go without telling me first." Elena gave a subtle nod. "I promise." Though Lily attended to the new customers, scribbling orders and delivering plates, her mind remained with Elena. She could barely recall a single face she served. Every free moment, her gaze drifted to that booth, where Elena sipped coffee, eyes distant. Eventually, the diner cleared out again, leaving the two of them in a hush broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights. Mustering her courage, Lily refilled Elena's mug one last time. Her throat felt dry. "I can take my break now," she offered. "If that's okay." Elena nodded, sliding over in the booth so Lily could sit beside her. The familiarity of that action, the almost motherly gesture of making space, made tears press at the corners of Lily's eyes. She blinked them away, inhaling slowly. They sat in silence for a heartbeat, each unsure how to begin. Finally, Lily looked at her hands, fingers twisting. "Did you know me before?" Elena's voice trembled. "Yes," she said quietly. "I was. Once. Someone who should have stayed by your side, but I didn't." Lily's breath caught. 1,000 emotions fought for space in her heart. Anger at having been abandoned, longing for answers, fear that the truth would hurt even more. "Why?" she asked, barely audible. "I always wondered why I wasn't enough." Elena closed her eyes, struggling to form words. "You were always enough," she managed, tears shimmering on her lashes. "I left because I was young, scared, and foolish. I thought maybe you deserved better than what I could give. And then, as time went on, I couldn't face you. It seemed impossible to come back." A tremor passed through Lily's chest. She bit her lip, adrenaline surging through her limbs. "It hurt," she whispered, voice unsteady. "I spent years feeling unwanted." Elena's tears fell freely. "I know," she said, voice cracking. "And I'm so sorry." They talked in halting starts, words tumbling out in fits and bursts. Elena revealed scraps of her past. How she wandered from city to city, chasing jobs that never lasted, wrestling with guilt every day. Lily listened, anger swirling with a strange relief that she wasn't alone in her confusion. Eventually, she realized her break had stretched too long. "I have to get back to work," she said, rising with shaky legs. "But don't leave yet." Elena nodded, hope and fear mingling in her expression. "I'll stay." Over the next few days, Lily felt as though she was walking through a dream, part joy, part agony. She finally had the answers she'd craved, but they led to more questions. Where had Elena been all this time? Why come back now? Did she truly regret her decision? Or was she seeking absolution from guilt? Lily's mind churned, her emotions ricocheting between anger, sadness, and cautious hope. When Elena stopped by the diner again, Lily didn't hesitate to sit with her for a few moments between tables. She heard fragments of Elena's story. She'd left town searching for a job, found herself in a precarious situation with no stable income, and eventually convinced herself that her daughter was better off without her. Elena admitted to grappling with shame for years, too paralyzed to return. Lily listened with her heart in her throat, tears sometimes welling up, as she realized how both of them had suffered in different ways. Sometimes Sam would give Lily a discreet nod, letting her know who'd cover the register so she could have a few extra minutes with Elena. Bit by bit, they pieced together a broken bond, each new conversation pulling a thread of their shared past out of the darkness. Still, it wasn't easy. On several evenings, Lily found herself snapping at Elena in frustration. Rage bubbled up when Elena casually mentioned a memory of Lily's childhood, as though she had any right to nostalgia after walking away. Lily apologized afterward, feeling guilty for the outbursts, but Elena never seemed angry in return. Instead, her eyes filled with sadness that mirrored Lily's own. They reached a turning point on a quiet afternoon. The diner was nearly empty, a rare lull when Lily had an hour between the breakfast and lunch crowds. She was wiping down tables when Elena entered. Without waiting to be asked, Elena sat at the counter. Lily poured her coffee, and they settled into an unspoken truce, each acknowledging the slow, shaky progress they were making. Elena cleared her throat. "Have you ever?" She paused, fiddling with a napkin. "Have you ever wanted to know more about your grandparents, your father, your extended family?" Lily froze, gripping the edge of the counter. Memories of the father she barely remembered collided with the knowledge that everything might have been different if her mother hadn't left. She swallowed, forcing herself to remain calm. "A little," she admitted, "but I tried not to dwell on it. Every time I asked my foster family about it, they either didn't know or told me not to get my hopes up." Elena winced. "I should have been there to explain. Instead, I let strangers handle it." Her fingers twisted the napkin so tightly it tore. "But if you'd like, I could tell you about them. Your grandma was a gentle woman, always humming some tune or another. I see a lot of her in you." Emotion swelled in Lily's chest, tears threatening to spill. She didn't know if she was ready to hear it all, but a stronger part of her yearned to connect the dots that had haunted her for so long. "Maybe we can talk after my shift," she offered softly. Elena's eyes glistened. "I'd like that." Weeks rolled by, each marked by hesitant steps toward understanding. Elena became a fixture at the diner, sometimes sipping coffee in companionable silence, other times slipping bits of history into conversation like fragile gifts. Lily discovered small joys in hearing about her grandmother's favorite songs, or how her father once tried to learn the guitar. She also discovered pangs of resentment, especially when Elena recalled a memory of Lily's early childhood that Lily herself barely remembered. One chilly evening, the diner was about to close. Only a few patrons remained, idly finishing their meals. Lily went about her end-of-shift tasks, with Elena watching from her usual booth. A swirl of uncertain courage stirred in Lily's stomach. Setting down her cloth, she mustered the resolve for the confrontation she'd been putting off. She approached Elena, voice trembling. "I have to know why you really left." She'd heard a version of the story, but a part of her doubted she knew the whole truth. Was it really just fear of not providing for me, or was there something else? Elena looked up, eyes anguished. She moved aside so Lily could sit, and once again they faced each other in that intimate closeness. "I was 19 when I had you," Elena began, voice hushed. "I was alone, financially unstable. Your father and I hadn't planned a future together. I convinced myself you deserved a stable home, something I thought I couldn't offer. So I gave you up. It was the worst mistake of my life, but at the time, it felt like the only option." Lily's heart constricted. She remembered being told she was placed in foster care, though the details were murky. She recalled her confusion each time another family came and went. "I spent a lot of time feeling unwanted," she whispered, tears burning down her cheeks. "But hearing you say it now, somehow it doesn't fix it, but it helps me understand." Elena reached for Lily's hands. "I wish I could undo it," she said. "I wish I had found a way to keep you." Silence laced with emotion stretched between them. Then Lily swallowed, wiping her tears on the back of her hand. I think we need to move forward, but that doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. I don't know if I can forgive everything right now, but I do want—" She paused, her voice trembling with sincerity. "I want to try to be in your life, if you'll be in mine. For real this time." A shuddering breath escaped Elena as she squeezed Lily's hands. "You have no idea how grateful I am to hear that." In that moment, Lily felt the first stirrings of genuine hope. She stood, letting Elena hold her a little longer, the weight of their shared pain easing fractionally. Perhaps their bond would always bear scars, but for the first time, Lily believed it could also hold love. Life continued at the diner, yet a subtle transformation took place. Sam teased that the place felt lighter, as if the gloom that once shadowed Lily's eyes had lifted. She found herself laughing with Sam more often, trading jokes, even humming to the radio while wiping counters. Elena came in regularly, not just to linger over coffee but to talk, truly talk, about everything. Lily's classes, her dreams, her frustrations with the foster system. Elena listened earnestly, sometimes offering suggestions, other times just providing a sympathetic ear. One weekend afternoon, Elena mentioned an art exhibition downtown. She invited Lily to come, almost timidly, as though expecting rejection. Lily hesitated, feeling the weight of her conflicting emotions, but she heard Sam's voice in her mind, reminding her that she deserved happiness and to explore relationships on her own terms. "All right," Lily agreed softly. "We can go." Elena's smile held a fragile joy that made Lily's chest tighten. They chose a day when Lily didn't have classes or a shift. Though the gray sky threatened more rain, Lily met Elena outside the diner, and together they rode the bus to the small gallery. The exhibit featured local artists, watercolor landscapes, sculptures fashioned from driftwood, pieces celebrating the city's maritime heritage. Lily moved from painting to painting, her mother at her side, occasionally murmuring impressions of the art. Nervousness prickled under Lily's skin. She was doing something, spending time with the woman who had once abandoned her, and the world hadn't ended. A mother and daughter strolled by, the little girl tugging excitedly at her mom's hand. Lily caught Elena noticing them, her lips pressing into a subtle frown. An unspoken regret loomed in Elena's eyes. Lily quickly turned away, swallowing the echo of sorrow that threatened to rise in her chest. They couldn't rewrite the lost years, but they could try to create something new. By the time they finished exploring the exhibits, a gentle warmth had settled between them, like a delicate truce. On the bus ride home, Elena tried to return the conversation to everyday matters: groceries, local events, maybe seeing a movie next month. Lily nodded along, her mind floating in a swirl of tentative acceptance. She didn't protest when Elena offered to walk her the last stretch to her apartment. As they stood on Lily's doorstep, Elena paused, glancing at the faded porch light. "Even when I wasn't there to watch you grow, she pressed her lips together. "I need you to know that." Lily tightened her grip on her keys, heart twisting. "Thank you," she whispered. I'm trying to let myself believe it." Elena's smile was tremulous. "I want to keep supporting you, if that's all right." Though part of Lily still bristled at the memories of abandonment, another part recognized Elena's earnest longing to make amends. "Let's see how it goes," she said, not unkindly. "One day at a time." Elena nodded, relief evident. With a gentle wave, she turned to leave, letting Lily retreat into her apartment. In the quiet darkness of her living room, Lily leaned against the closed door, heart heavy but hopeful. Maybe it was possible to accept her mother's presence without erasing the pain of her absence. Maybe, in this uncertain middle ground, they could slowly build a bridge toward a future they both needed. As weeks stretched into months, a cautious rhythm formed. Elena stopped by the diner a few times a week, sometimes bringing a paperback novel to read or a small gift. A box of pastries, a new pen for Lily's notepad. Lily remained guarded but polite, her trust growing in tiny increments each time Elena proved she wouldn't vanish again. They talked in short, intimate bursts, slowly peeling back layers of misunderstanding and hurt. Sometimes Lily's anger resurfaced, triggered by offhand remarks that highlighted what she had missed. The next day, Elena would come with a heartfelt apology. They found ways to keep healing, discovering each other's likes and dislikes, as though meeting anew. Over time, the gaping wound of the past shrank into a scar that, while tender, no longer bled quite so freely. Sam, ever the supportive friend, noticed the change in Lily's demeanor. One evening, after she finished up a busy shift, he gave her a playful nudge. "You seem lighter," he observed. "Happier, maybe, even if it's just by a little." Lily thought about it, a faint smile touching her lips. "I guess I do feel a bit better," she admitted. "I never thought I'd see her again. Now that she's here, I'm realizing how heavy it was carrying that question around all these years." Sam nodded, flipping a dish towel over his shoulder. "Families can be messy," he said. "Doesn't mean they can't be beautiful in their own way." His words stuck with Lily. She saw glimpses of that unexpected beauty in her hesitant interactions with Elena. The gentle relief on her mother's face when Lily invited her to sit, or the reassuring squeeze of Elena's hand on a tough day. Each moment felt like progress, a fragile step away from bitterness. Though Lily's fear of being hurt again still loomed, she allowed herself the quiet hope that Elena wouldn't walk away. Early one morning, just before Lily's shift, she stopped by the diner for a quick cup of coffee to go. She was startled to find Elena already there, sitting at the counter, staring at the empty space behind it. It was unusual. Elena typically came in the afternoons or evenings. "Elena?" Lily said, setting down her backpack. "You're here early." Elena turned, her face etched with a mix of anxiety and resolve. I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking a lot about how much time we lost, and about your future." Lily frowned, apprehension creeping up her spine. "What about my future?" Elena gestured to a small envelope on the counter. "I know you're saving for school," she began, voice trembling. "I put aside some money over the years. It's not a fortune, but I want you to have it to help with tuition." Confusion and a sudden rush of emotion made Lily's head spin. She stared at the envelope as if it were dangerous. "Why?" she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "You can't just pay for your mistakes and expect it to fix everything." Elena's voice broke. "I know. I'm not trying to buy forgiveness. I want to do what I can to support you, because I never did before. If you don't want to accept it, I understand. I only ask that you think about it." Raw anger and guilt twisted inside Lily. She pushed the envelope away, tears burning her cheeks. "I can't do this right now," she said shakily. "It hurts too much and it feels like pity." Elena's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry," she whispered, standing from the stool. She locked eyes with Lily for a heartbreaking moment, then slipped out the door, the bell echoing in the stillness. Lily slumped onto the stool, burying her face in her hands. The envelope sat there, an accusation and an offering all at once. She hated how complicated it felt to accept help from the woman who had abandoned her. She loathed the way her heart softened at the thought that maybe Elena was simply trying to give her something meaningful. The swirl of conflicting emotions left her breathless. She stayed there for several minutes, letting tears drip onto the countertop. When Sam arrived to prep for the day, he found Lily staring at the envelope with red-rimmed eyes. He set a gentle hand on her back. "You okay?" She swallowed a sob. "I don't know. Let me guess," Sam said, eyeing the envelope. "She's trying to help you, but you're not sure if you can accept it." Lily nodded mutely. Sam took a breath. "Accepting someone's help doesn't erase the pain," he said gently. "It just means maybe they're serious about trying to be there now. Doesn't fix the past, but it might help shape the future." His words were like a small key turning in Lily's locked heart. She didn't respond, but the tears slowed. Carefully, she slipped the envelope into her bag. She would decide what to do later. That night, after a turbulent shift spent warring with her thoughts, Lily found Elena waiting outside the diner in the drizzling rain. She wore a concerned expression that cut straight to Lily's core. "Hey," Lily said quietly, stepping under the eave. "Why are you standing out in the rain?" Elena shook her head. "I wanted to apologize for earlier. I shouldn't have sprung that on you." Lily studied her mother's face, the raindrops gathering in Elena's hair. In the past, she might have lashed out, letting bitterness overshadow the uneasy kindness that had grown between them. But in that moment, something shifted. She recognized the genuine remorse in Elena's eyes, the vulnerability in admitting her mistakes, the courage it took to try again. "Let's talk inside," Lily said softly, unlocking the diner and gesturing for Elena to enter. The place was dim, chairs perched on tables, a sign reading "Closed" in the window. They sat at the counter in the hush of the empty space. Elena fumbled for words. "If you don't want anything from me, I understand." Lily rested her elbows on the countertop. "I don't want money to be the reason we reconnect," she said quietly. "But I also understand you're trying to show you care about my future. That means something." Hope flickered in Elena's eyes. "It really does," she insisted. "I just want you to have every chance you deserve." They sat in silence for a moment before Lily pulled the envelope from her bag. Her heart thudded as she placed it between them. "I'll accept it on one condition," she said, voice wavering. "That this isn't just a fix. She hesitated, tears threatening. "You have to keep showing up. I can't be left alone again." Elena's trembling hand rested over Lily's, covering the envelope. "I'll do everything I can to be here," she promised, eyes full of tears. Every single day, a fragile understanding bloomed. Lily felt a bit of the heaviness lift. The money was a symbol, but the real gift was Elena's willingness to remain by her side, no matter how long it took for wounds to heal. Outside, the rain pounded against the windows, but inside, they found an intimacy that neither had dared hope for. A month later, near closing time, Lily finished wiping the last table. The diner was empty again, Sam having left to run errands. The quiet settled on the walls like a cozy blanket. She reflected on how far she and Elena had come in such a short span. There were still moments of hurt, still nightmares that left her trembling at night. But Elena was there to comfort her when she woke. Sometimes they'd talk on the phone, or Elena would walk Lily home. And though it felt new and sometimes awkward, Lily's chest tingled with a cautious sense of belonging. She nearly jumped when the door opened. Elena slipped inside, carrying 2 steaming cups of takeout cocoa. "Thought you might need a warm drink," she said shyly, setting 1 cup on the counter in front of Lily. "I tried a new place nearby. It's pretty good." Lily smiled, grateful for the simple gesture. They sipped cocoa together, perched side by side on stools, the diner's fluorescent lights humming overhead. Lily leaned her arm against Elena's, feeling the comforting weight of someone she could begin to trust. She let out a slow, contented breath. "I never thanked you properly," Lily said, glancing down at the cup in her hands. "Not just for the money, but for sticking around. I know it must be difficult, facing the guilt." Elena's voice was thick with emotion. "I'm the one who should be thanking you for giving me a second chance," she murmured. pressing her hand gently against Lily's shoulder. Not everyone would. A warm hush enveloped them. Lily thought back to the lonely nights she had spent, convinced she'd never see her mother again. Now, she felt a measure of peace, something she never believed she'd find. She set her cup down and gave Elena's hand a small squeeze. "Maybe we can't change what happened," Lily said, "but it doesn't define us anymore." Elena's eyes shone with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I love you, you know." A tremor ran through Lily's chest, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. She nodded, feeling a tightness in her throat. I love you too," she finally managed, voice cracking with the weight of long-buried truth. They clung to each other in that moment, letting the echoes of the past settle last. The diner, so often just a stage for hurried orders and fleeting transactions, had become the backdrop for a remarkable reunion, a place where a mother and daughter found the courage to confront their pain and rebuild from the shattered pieces of years lost. By the time they locked up and stepped outside, the night sky had cleared, leaving a radiant tapestry of stars. The earlier rain glistened on the pavement, reflecting streetlights like tiny mirrors. Elena offered to walk Lily home. They strolled in comfortable silence, arms occasionally brushing. The crisp air smelled of wet concrete and fresh hope. Pausing at a corner, Lily tilted her face skyward, admiring the silvery glow of the moon. She used to walk these streets alone, wishing for someone to care whether she made it home safely. Now, her mother stood beside her, not perfect, not infallible, but present. It was enough to send a wave of gratitude surging through Lily's chest. Elena turned, catching Lily's expression. "What is it?" Lily shook her head, smiling softly. "Just thinking how everything can change so fast. I never thought I'd even speak to you again." Elena's eyes reflected a wistful sadness. "I'm glad you gave me a chance," she said quietly. They continued walking, slow steps echoing on the damp sidewalks. And in that unspoken companionship, Lily realized she was no longer just a waitress waiting for someone to reappear from the shadows of her past. She was a daughter taking the first steps toward healing. The scars would remain, but now they served as reminders of resilience, a testament to the love they chose to nurture out of the broken shards of what once was. In the hush of the night, beneath a sky etched with starlight, Lily felt the warmth of a future she never thought possible. A future where, despite all the pain, mother and daughter could share the same path at last. And as they turned the final corner, heading toward the soft glow of Lily's apartment light, neither could deny the quiet miracle of having rediscovered each other in the most unexpected of places. A worn diner on a rainy day, where coffee was served and destinies converged.